How have Irish people's taste changed in the last 5 years?
It used to be like, oh, my look is Nordic, or my look is Scandi, or my look is, mid-century. Just because your home is Scandi doesn't mean you can't have something Asian inspired, in the corner of your room.
Welcome to Style Stories, brought to you by Easy Living Interiors, helping you transform your space and create the feeling of home.
Hi guys, I'm Jamie Griffin and welcome to our Style Stories podcast. In this episode, we're back on the sofa with one of Ireland's most influential people when it comes to house and home. She'll be sharing her story from her start at Fashion Week in London and New York and Milan to giving the very latest tips on home and design trends here in Ireland. So let's get to the centre of our Sandyford store and jump on our sofa with Editorial Director of House and Home, Sive O'Brien. Welcome to the sofa, Sive. How are you feeling?
Hi, I'm great. Delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh God, how exciting. So how are you getting on? How's life?
Yeah, good. Yeah. So, we just went to print for our last issue of the magazine. So I'm feeling good today and happy to be here.
So I have some questions for you now, if that's okay.
Great. Yeah, hit me.
So Sive, what was your journey like becoming editorial director at House and Home?
So my journey to becoming editorial director at House and Home has been long. Yeah. It started in fashion journalism, actually. Mm-hmm. Well, I studied fashion marketing and worked in marketing for a while and then kind of segued into magazines about 25 years ago. So showing my age now, but
you look great.
So I went into Image magazine first of all as an intern, mm-hmm. and then became editorial assistant and then fashion editor. And I was just hooked on the magazine world, publishing world, working in fashion in my 20s. It was brilliant. So I was there for about 14 years. And then I moved into digital publishing for a few years. Yeah. And then went out on my own and worked more in content marketing and brand marketing. And now I've been with House and Home magazine for about 6 months. Okay. So I've just finished our 3rd issue.
Oh, that's so exciting.
Yeah.
So how was it being an intern and then from where you are now? Like, how was that journey? How did you feel about it? Were you nervous?
When I was an intern, I was straight out of college, so exciting, working in fashion, traveling, to London Fashion Week and New York and Milan. It was amazing. It was back in the days where, it was kind of the heyday of glossy magazines and very exciting. I was absolutely hooked. So it was a brilliant mix of kind of journalism and creative. So I would have produced a lot of the fashion shoots in Image, as well as kind of liaising with freelancers and I suppose just constantly researching what's new, what's happening, what's exciting to put in the magazine. So I suppose as an intern, that was just phenomenal. And I'm very lucky they asked me to come back. And as I said, I stayed 14 years. So I obviously loved it. Yeah. But then at that stage, digital publishing was coming much more to the fore and social media. And I went back and studied actually digital marketing by night and then moved more into digital publishing. Mm-hmm. And I set up a magazine for a digital publishing house and grew the brand and was much more involved with kind of the social media and digital content. Yeah. So now I'm doing both. So I'm doing print and digital and social now for House and Home. So,
wow, you literally have two sides of the coin.
Yeah, I also work with brands. So I do brand consulting with lifestyle brands. So fashion, interiors, beauty, health, wellness, that kind of thing. So,
oh my God. Yeah, whoa, that's
a little bit of both. A little bit of lots of things. Yeah.
So how would you find between digital and print as well? Like how do you, what's your take on that? And how do you feel like it's evolved and how it's changed and stuff?
Yeah, well, obviously the print industry has massively changed. Yeah. But I think for interiors, it has stayed in that it's remained. And I definitely think people still love picking up a print magazine. Yeah. There's nothing like picking up a glossy and flicking through it and just curling up on your sofa with a coffee and a magazine. And I'm definitely a print girl at heart. So I've always loved interiors magazines, even when I was purely working in fashion, you know, getting on a flight and buying a few magazines in the airport and, you know, or just curling up at the weekend on an armchair. So I know that people tell me all the time they love doing that with interiors magazines. It's not the same online and social. Like, you can be saving stuff all the time on social media and you can be looking at magazines online, but it's just not the same, I think, as browsing through an interiors magazine. So I think there will always be a place, I hope, for print magazines for interiors. And then obviously there's room for digital magazines. So many people, you know, I read digital as well. I read it on my tablet or my phone, but it's a different type of reading, and you know, it's more glossing and glazing and maybe saving. You know, I have so many folders in Instagram of, you know, Sive loves, kitchen loves, you know, sofa loves, armchair loves, you know, and that's great. But sometimes
there's more emotion in the print. I feel like.
There is.
Like the smell of a magazine, you connecting with it, like there is more like a personal kind of touch as well. Yeah,
there's more attention to detail, I think. When you're looking at something in print, you look at it for longer and you take it in. I think we're our brains are so busy. We're digesting so many marketing messages and advertising messages all day, every day. You know, we're bombarded with social media accounts, you know, things that we don't even want to look at. So there's just something so lovely about, you know, glancing and flicking through the pages. And I do think our brains digest it more. But there's room for both.
You've had a diverse career spanning editorial, brand marketing and consulting. How have these experiences shaped your approach to running a magazine?
Oh, that's such an interesting question, because it's funny, like when I studied, I did a lot of consumer behavior. And I actually think, you know, everyone should do that in a way if they go into publishing or content or marketing. You know, it gave me such an insight, because it's so easy to run away with yourself and go, oh, this is so gorgeous. I love this sofa. I love this color. But it's all actually about the customer, you know, and you have to think about what everyone else likes, you know, and you have to you take yourself out of the bubble of the brand, you know. So it's very easy to put pages together in a magazine and go, you know, I love red, so therefore, you know, this page has to be red. But it's all about the reader. What do they like? You know, it's always about, you know, checking in with the reader, you know, where are they at, you know, knowing your audience really well. And for House and Home in particular, they've been around for 30 years. So we really are acutely aware of the customer, who reads it, what they like to read. So, you know, and we reach out all the time and we get DMs on Instagram all the time. So, you know, that's where the brand marketing comes in. You know, I'm always really aware of, you know, the customer, you know, where they're at, what stage they're at in life, or what's going on for them every day, you know, and how our content can serve them best. And, you know, so it isn't just all about our opinions and what we like. Obviously, we have to curate it, you know, and it is my eye and what I like and my experience and what I think is kind of the next thing and what looks good, and, you know, giving people, you know, information that they can't get anywhere else or expertise that they can't get anywhere else. You know, that's always super important as well. But we do it through a lens of the reader. And that's where the brand marketing has really come into it, you know. And it helps, obviously, that I work with loads of interiors brands in a marketing capacity, you know, so I see it from the other side as well. So it works. And I think that's why I think the brand is so popular and we have such a loyal following.
Yeah. And what do you feel like your community is like themselves?
Yeah, like it's actually been amazing. Like it's so interesting to see, like, you know, for other brands I've worked with, you know, sometimes you put social media posts out and it's just tumbleweed, you know, but there's such a community of followers for House and Home. Like, it's amazing. Like everyone's so into everything you post and they talk to each other, and like the inbox every day is flooded with questions. You know, it's like, oh, I've bought a new table. I know you featured something in an issue before, but I can't find the issue. Would you mind? You know, they remember what you've posted or you've put in the magazine, and they really trust your expertise. Like, I've been really taken aback by that. So, there's a lovely community. There's a real trust there. And actually everyone in the interiors industry, they're just so nice. Like this, like I actually think it's funny, having worked in fashion for years, and I've worked in loads of different areas and in different magazines over the years, but interiors and interior design, like people who work in it and follow it and are, they're kind of infatuated. They're obsessed, the way, like, so there's a real passion, it's lovely, there's a real passion for the, choosing your furniture and choosing, what goes in your home. It's such an emotional choice, I love that people trust us to help them with that, because like if you pick something for your home, like you can be living with it for 20 years, and it has to work with your family, it has to work with your life. So it's a really important decision. And I've made loads of bad decisions in my own house. So I know how important it is. If you're spending a lot of money, for that forever piece in your home, it has to be right. So I love that we inform people, on their decisions.
Yeah, no, it's really good. And for like, as you said, like fashion and interior, what do you think is like a big difference between them?
Yeah, well, obviously with fast fashion and trends, they come and go. Interiors trends have more longevity. It's not to say there isn't trends. There is, but, you couldn't change up your carpet color, every season or as fast as some of the fashion trends that come and go. And I think with fashion, obviously people pick, they might pick what's someone else is wearing, but you don't pick a sofa that somebody else, necessarily has just picked for their home. It has to work with you and your life. So there's more longevity with the trends. Obviously, things evolve, but I think with your home, you pick things that are personal to you, that you want to be surrounded around, by, like it can be a mixture of heirlooms. It could be a mixture of, just a rug that you've had for years with a new sofa or with a new dining table. And you do change things up, but you definitely keep those things longer. I certainly wouldn't be wearing a pair of shoes I had from 20 years ago. Well, I mean, I might, but, I love fashion too much, so I mightn't be, but not as much as, those pieces in my home that I've had for, that I've stayed with me through a few homes. Yeah. And they're like the forever pieces that I love, and I've chosen really carefully, so it is that's the real difference, I think, in fashion. There's more meaning with the things you choose for your home. Yeah.
Yeah. What does a typical day look like for you? And is there such a thing?
There's definitely no such thing as a typical day. In the magazine, there's a life cycle, it's every 2 months. So at the beginning of that, you're coming up with all the ideas for the next issue, or you're commissioning some of the freelancers, you're confirming your shoots, you're liaising with photographers, maybe a stylist for a shoot, you're organizing the dates, you're maybe talking to a homeowner, so there's all that. You're liaising with the sales team, you're talking, setting out the page plan for the issue. So it goes in a kind of a cycle over the 2 months. And then once you start getting the pages in from the freelancers, you might be editing copy. You might be kind of going, oh, there's some images that go with that, but oh, there's a lovely one from that other brand and that would look lovely on that page. So it's a really collaborative approach, which is lovely. So it happens over the 2 months, and then obviously coming up to when we're in production, the last few weeks, it all goes a bit mental. But that's normal, and that's always the way it's been in print magazines. And then obviously while you're producing the magazine, you're doing social media. So it could be, there could be events coming up that we're involved with. And, we've got a lovely event coming up with Easy Living Interiors, which we're so excited about. So, we could be putting something out in social media for that, or, putting a little teaser reel out with a new issue coming out. So it's a mixture of digital, and then we do put teaser articles on houseandhome.ie as well, but we're more focused on Instagram, Pinterest and print. Yeah. And then obviously I do work for other brands as well, so that comes into it. So I have other clients that I work with. So it's busy, but I absolutely love it.
Yeah, you're a jack of all trades and a master of all.
But you're always researching, you're just constantly researching the next big thing, the next trend, the next brand to feature, the next interior designer. You need to kind of be one step ahead. And I think even more so in print, because there is that lag time. So people can be reading something online or on social, and you don't want them to have read news pieces, for example, and then the magazine comes out a few weeks later and they've already read it. Mm-hmm. So you just need to be really conscious that, you're delivering fresh content in a different way. Yeah. So even if we do a news piece on something from a brand, that you present it in a different way, or it's something they haven't seen before, or, you know, you have a little bit of a spin on it, or, you know, we're very focused on bringing experts in to give us advice for that reason, you know. So I'm constantly looking for new experts to feature, you know, so that we have that kind of edge, I suppose.
Yeah. So when it comes to trends then, like, what would be the best way to try kind of see what's coming, like, in your opinion? Like, do you have like any, like, anything you think of or anything like that?
Yeah, well, like I keep in touch with all the trend forecasting websites.
Yeah.
So I would get their newsletters. So you're kind of like, you're very much ahead on those. You know what colors are coming down the line. And, you know, before Pantone announced their color of the year, mocha and mousse, like, you know, people in the industry would have kind of had a fair idea, do you know, the way what was coming down the line. So you have to be ahead. You have to read the trend forecasting sites, you know, following people who are in the know, I suppose. And then also experts get in touch with you, you know. So it's a little bit of following the right people on social trend forecasting sites. You know, I'm in touch with the brands a lot, with the PRs for all the brands. So you are ahead, you're a season ahead a lot of the time, you know, with what's coming down the line, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and it shows. How do you approach storytelling in interiors, and how has that evolved over the years?
Well, yeah, storytelling is, I suppose, in journalism, you know, every time you sit down to write something, or every time you're editing something, it's, you know, what's the story here? You know, the way, like, a story has to have a start, a middle and an end, you know, and we even take that approach on social media. You know, there's no point in just throwing up a story. You know, it's like, you know, it has to have a start, a middle and an end, even in your caption, you know, and in print. So everything has to have that story element, you know. So, for our house shoots, for example, we'll tell a story of the homeowner or the interior designer, you know, how they approached the project from the beginning to the end, you know, where they got from having a shell to, you know, deciding the layout and deciding the interiors to the end result, and telling the story of the owner, you know, if they've bought a house. You know, the whole story is lovely, you know, the way, like, you know, what they did with it, and taking the reader through that to the very end, you know, and then showing the beautiful end result. But you have to tell a story not just through words, through imagery as well. So, no, storytelling is a huge element. And they're the sort of things that people don't really know goes behind the scenes, I suppose, with putting out content. But they're the things that we factor into every single page layout, every single feature, you know, even if it's a news piece. Is there enough in this? Is there a hook? You know, is there enough that people will go away and remember this, and, you know, really remember that there's a little story in this? Because, you know, and even in working in brand marketing as well, you know, you can tell a brand story in a sentence. Mm-hmm. So because I do that for brands, I know that that's really important in the magazine as well. So I try and bring it into everything, you know, as best as we can.
So what are some of the biggest home and design trends you're seeing right now?
Oh, some of the biggest trends. Well, definitely curved furniture. It's having a massive moment. Not to say that your lovely hard-edged sofas and furniture, you know, has to be replaced, but I don't know whether it's a post-COVID thing. Everyone's just kind of softening up a little bit, and, you know, there's definitely a retro influence, you know, like that kind of 50s furniture influence. But, you know, in saying that, the classics, the design classics will always be there. So a lot of that kind of harder edged on furnitures, which I love actually personally, will never go away. But there's definitely a real craze for curved edges. Boucle still having a moment. It's very hot in interiors in the last year or two, but now I'm seeing it in loads of different colors and different types of finishes, in everything, you know, boucle everything. And it's gorgeous. It has that lovely tactile feeling, you know. And I think last year there was a lot of creams and whites boucles, but now there's all sorts of colors in boucle. So that's definitely having a moment. And browns, obviously the Pantone color of the moment or color of the year is mocha mousse, which is a lovely kind of it's kind of like a creamy coffee kind of color, but it's kind of opened the gates for all sorts of browns coming in, and actually darker kind of espresso coffee brown. We've just done a page on it. It's really cool as well, and really on trend. There's a huge We're all for that at the moment. Loads of colour, actually. Like, obviously there's always colour, but I definitely think coming out of COVID, you know, people seem to be just embracing so much more colour in their homes now.
Really?
And I'm more of a kind of an eclectic mix of, even though I hate that word, bringing in not as much kind of trend focused. You know, it used to be like, oh, my look is Nordic, or my look is Scandi, or my look is, you know, mid-century. I think kind of mixing in the genres now is much more acceptable, you know, and having those pieces, you know, like we touched on earlier, with meaning and, you know, little heirloom pieces. And, you know, just because your home is Scandi doesn't mean you can't have something, you know, Asian inspired, you know, in the corner of your room. So that kind of mixed up look is much more acceptable. And art, you know, there's obviously a huge, everyone always loves art for their home, but I think it used to be much more that you had to have the artist of the moment, or that, you know, you had to go in and maybe buy it from a print or something like that. But now, you know, it's all about art you love. You know, it could just be something you've created yourself. Could be something you've downloaded from Pinterest and, you know, got a cool frame to put it in. And it's much more acceptable to put that on a wall with your, you know, amazing artists that you've saved for years to buy, or, you know, you've got something as a wedding present or something like that, you know. So that real kind of mix and match trend, mixing genres and mixing pieces that you've had forever, you know. And actually funny, somebody even said that to me the other day. They said, I've pulled out this bowl that my granny left me and I always thought it was hick, but now it actually, you know, I love it because it has that kind of, you know, sentimental value for her. Yeah. And it's much more acceptable. And she would have been really stylized with her house and everything had to kind of match. And it was all Nordic and, you know, and so it's, and I love that trend. And I think that's lovely. And it's brilliant for interiors because it means you don't have to go and replace everything every time. But, you know, and we actually interviewed Hugh Wallace for this issue of House and Home. And he said something which really stayed with me. You know, he said, if you buy something that's based on a classic design, it doesn't have to be a design classic, but if it's based on a classic design, you can just change the upholstery year on year. You know, it can be velvet if velvet is on trend, or it can be boucle. You know, you can decide to reupholster, you know. And I was just there, it's such a good takeaway, you know, if you buy something that has that kind of design that never goes out of fashion, you can change it up. If you want to look at something, if pink is really now, buy, you know, upholster it in pink, you know, and it's more affordable way to do it. But, you know, if the shape is lovely and goes with everything, you don't always have to be buying and replacing new. Mm-hmm.
And for easy living interiors then, what furniture sticks out to you the most? Is there any ones you relate to or anything like that?
Well, I'm a bit of a sofa nut, I have to say. I love the Sofa Workshop collection. It's gorgeous. Absolutely love this one. I love the navy version of this. I'm big into navy, and green. Green is my color at the moment. I love, you have a new sofa in that's green. Is it called the
Bottega?
Yes, the Bottega. Yeah. Absolutely love that. And talking of trends, I know that's very kind of on trend at the moment, that shape. Mm-hmm. But again, it's based on a design classic. So even though it is a kind of a trendy sofa that you're going to see on Pinterest and Instagram, it'll never go away. You know, it is a shape that was based on a design classic, and they're classics for a reason. Yeah. So I love that. I'm green. I love green. I have a green sofa. Yeah, green, loads of green in my house. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I love that couch. That's beautiful.
Oh, that's really good as well. And yeah, we have the Scott collection as well, and they all come in different colours. They actually come in green as well.
Oh, the great. Scott comes in green. Yeah, I love the brown leather version as well. It's actually lovely. And you know what, to sit on, it's so squishy. I love it.
Yeah, we did that with the Sofa Workshop with Hugh as well. And he was a big fan. Yeah.
So, I've been prone to buy things that look nice and aren't actually comfortable.
Oh, really?
Well, but my family, you know, gives me grief. You know, I'm going, well, it's just so beautiful. But I think when it comes to sofas, it's all about comfort, you know, but it still has to look good.
Yeah, I get you. Do you think that has changed since COVID? Do you think that has been, like, as you said, the curves and stuff? Do you think since COVID then that more people want, like, relax?
Absolutely. And with the work from home, you know, like we all spend so much time at home now, even with people doing hybrid working. You know, everyone's just so into their homes, you know.
That's such a good point.
Yeah. And, you know, I worked at home for 8 years. So, you know, you're taking your break from your office. You need to go and just sit down somewhere comfy, you know, have somewhere to relax. You know, my husband has a home office. So yeah, comfort is definitely key. And everyone's just like, I think just relaxed a bit more about their interiors post-COVID. You know, it is all about surrounding yourselves with pieces you love, feeling comfortable, having tactile pieces, you know, and just creating a sanctuary, you know. And thankfully we're not as it's not as rigid, and we're not in offices so much, you know. So our homes really have to work for that as well.
Yeah, I'd say it definitely opened up people's minds, and especially with their design styles, as you said, like more people love color now and everything like that, which is great. We'll get back to our interview in 30 seconds, but first a quick word on what we're up to right now.
Welcome to the home you've always dreamed of, thanks to the Easy Living Interiors Home Event Sale. With flexible finance options, it's never been easier to afford the look you love in sofas, dining, beds and accessories. And we've discounts in every department, from best-selling favourites to new spring arrivals. Plus garden furniture with fast delivery. Shop in-store or online now. The home event at Easy Living Interiors. Cork, Dublin, Navan, Naas, Wexford, Waterford, Carlow and Drogheda. Sale now on.
How do you decide what makes it into the magazine? What is the creation process like?
So the curation process is...
I'd say it's very hard.
It's long. I'd say people probably think, you know, we just go, oh, this, and we'll plop that on a page and we're good to go. And much to the designer's dismay, I suppose I would be quite fussy about what ends up making it on the page, you know, because I think you have to have a good mixture of brands. You have to have a good mixture of aspirational pieces. So not everything on a page is going to be something that you can go out and buy tomorrow. You know, you definitely need to have one or two kind of wow pieces that you would kind of go, I would love to have that. My budget might never extend. To really the really affordable pieces that you can kind of go, great, that's in stock. I can go tomorrow. I really need a new table, you know, and I want to go and buy that now, and that's in my budget. So it's just having the full gamut, I suppose, of nice brands that kind of appeal to our reader, aspirational brands, and then a little bit of affordability. You know, maybe the kind of, if you can't afford to go out and buy a new sofa tomorrow, you might just kind of go, oh, well, I can't afford a sofa, but I might just get that beautiful vase because I'm entertaining this weekend, or, you know. So you need to have a good mix of house features that are beautiful to look at and people are bookmarking and saving for their next home projects, to shopping pages that they can go and buy stuff tomorrow, to expert features. So you're curating each feature so that there's a really good mix of everything. And then you're creating every single page so there's a really good mix of brands, colors, shapes. It looks good, prices. And yeah, every page is curated, and it's a kind of an 8-week process. So from start to finish, even for a page that starts, you know, it could be 6 weeks by the time we've actually signed off on that page, you know, because you need a balance with the rest of the magazine. You need to make sure everything kind of fits, and your storytelling, like coming back to the storytelling, your storytelling from, you know, it's 150 pages, you know, so you need somebody to start the magazine and finish it and not go, but that was all about one brand, or that was all about one price bracket, or that was all about one style. You need to factor in everyone has different taste, everyone has different styles. So you need to have a good mix of everything. Yeah,
good. It's literally like a jigsaw art piece you're making.
It's such a good point. I always say it's actually like a game of Tetris.
Oh, game of Tetris.
You know, if anyone remembers Tetris, you know, because you can take one thing out and then everything else kind of falls apart around it. Yeah. So that's where the balance comes in and the curation comes in. You know, it is a delicate balance.
Sustainability is a huge conversation in interiors. How do you incorporate it into your editorial direction?
Yeah, so obviously sustainability is huge, and especially for interiors, you know, you're putting together a magazine, enticing people to go and buy and shop and, you know, buy things all the time, you know, so you need to be aware that you're giving people enough content that is sustainably minded, you know. So yes, you can go and buy the new sofa and you can buy the new thing, but you can also reuse something, or you can recycle something or upcycle something as well.
Yeah.
So no, we're acutely aware of that, so that we're not just constantly turning everyone into a consumerist, because we have a duty of care to make sure that that's not the messaging that goes out. We do a sustainability issue every year that's focused on the sustainability. And actually this year it's going to be the sustainability and energy issue. And we really want to focus on all the grants that are available now. And obviously grants change year on year. So we've already commissioned some features around that. So, something as simple as, easy ways to get your SEAI grant, 9 steps to, and really helping homeowners, because it's a real mix of our readers are, they could be new homeowners, or they could be doing a self-build, or they could be selling their house. We did a piece last month on staging your house for sale. If you're selling your house, how to make sure that your BER rating is good for sale. The issue isn't just focused around shopping, so it's a right mix of information for the current consumer, because it is very easy to just say, here's 150 pages of buy, shop. But that's not the way people live now. And we really need to be mindful of that. So that's why we incorporate it into every issue, and we definitely, when we're choosing our experts, we choose them wisely. So there's always somebody on the sustainability side. And then we have a dedicated issue every year so that we make sure we pack it with all the sustainable content, because shoppers are more sustainably minded now. There's no doubt about it. Thank God they are, and I'm a mother. So, I want, my children to live, to have a planet to live on. So it's very important. So yeah, that recycling element, and not always buying new, or when you do buy new, which everyone does, and we want everyone to, and, we all have to buy new things all the time, but it's just how you reuse or recycle, your old things. And that just because you replace something doesn't mean you have to throw something else out. Yeah,
100%. It's like another man's trash, another man's treasure. So what has been the proudest moment of your career so far?
So, gosh, the proudest moment of my career.
I know it's a tough question, but it's okay. You got this.
I probably would say it could have been literally the first time I had a feature published in my first magazine job, because it's seeing your name there. And I was just so proud. And I think my mum was so proud of me. She was so proud. She went out and bought me a suit. And I still have the jacket of that suit, would you believe? But yeah, I suppose just she was so proud of me. I was so delighted with myself that I had got something published. And I think the magazine world was kind of so new to me at the time, and it wasn't really my intended career trajectory. I thought I was going to go more into marketing and go and work in a fashion house with more, or maybe a market research company more on the consumer behavior side, because I was so interested in that. So there was just such a buzz, with getting your first article featured. There's been loads of career highs, obviously, since, but that was kind of a proud moment, I suppose.
Yeah, the first one always hits home, doesn't it? You're like,
and definitely the traveling to the fashion shows was certainly an exciting moment in my career. New York, Milan,
that must have been
Paris,
huge.
London, every year, multiple times. Brilliant. Getting backstage, I saw Karl Lagerfeld backstage at Fendi. That was cool. Yeah, loads of like exciting moments like that. But proud, I'd say, was the first time you had that feature done and featured. That was, and then I think that's kind of what hooked me from then on,
Yeah, and that's so lovely. You still have the suit jacket that your mom gave you as well. That's so nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to be finishing with quick fire round. Your top 5. This can be anything from holiday destinations, favorite restaurants, or beach spots. First one.
Okay, top 5. Ooh, so hard. I have to relate it back to interiors because again, I'm so obsessed.
Number 1.
So it's probably accounts that I'm following at the moment that I love for inspiration, maybe.
Yeah.
Like personally there's an Australian account, Kerry Ann Jones. She's an Australian stylist and I just love her style.
Obsessed.
Oh, I'm obsessed. And she's brilliant on tips. She doesn't just go, here's loads of lovely stuff, save this, she's just really, really good on kind of tips and styling tips, and she always links up with really exciting architects and homes. And I feel like I just save all her posts. So she's amazing. Couple of Irish accounts, obviously. I follow all the home influencers I'm obsessed with. I love Deco Dwelling. She's based in Belfast. We actually shot her home a few months ago because she shows her style and her house. So, and I've bought a few things that she's worn on her posts. So that's been pretty cool. And I know that Easy Living dressed her house for Christmas as well. That was kind of cool. So I was obsessed with her house around then, and I tried to emulate the Christmas tree, but it didn't really work. But yeah, so her account is brilliant. And I love, there's an American sister duo called Host, but it's spelled Houst, Haust. And they're all about dinner parties and tablescapes. Okay. I absolutely love cooking and I love having dinner parties. So they're my current fave for saving stuff. And their mom is Swedish. So I love that kind of Scandinavian sensibility. So that would be kind of my interior style a bit. So, and fashion. So I love following them. So that's 3
interiors, cooking, fashion.
Oh yeah. Well, that's 3 accounts to follow. Let me think of 2 more. Christian Lemieux is a New York based interior designer, and she is, oh my God, her stuff is just so beautiful. The photography is beautiful. The posts are beautiful. I want my home literally to just be, I want her to come and redo my home, basically, in another world. But she is phenomenal. I love her posts are stunning. She's New York based. And then, I'll give you another Irish one, actually. And it's actually another girl that we featured called, her house is called Halka Lodge.
Halka Lodge.
Yeah, and it was a self-build on the west coast of Ireland. So beautiful. They have a little swimming pool outside. So I'm obsessed with her house anyway. But after she built the house and we photographed it and put it in one of our issues last summer, she started this cooking series called Style Stories, I think. No, sorry, that's yours. It's not called Style Stories. It's called Food and Style, or Food Stories. That's it.
Yeah.
And she brings people in and they make a recipe in her gorgeous kitchen. So you get that kind of interiors hit and the cooking hit. So that's both my vices. And she interviews people and they chat while they, so she has a YouTube channel. And so she's another page that I absolutely love. So that's 5. Yeah.
Okay, well, that was great. That was so nice.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Yeah, oh my God.
Talking all things interior is my favourite topic.
Sive O'Brien, thanks so much for coming to Style Stories.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us on Style Stories with Easy Living Interiors. You can hear all the news, including links to more information, in the description area of this podcast. Please share our show with a friend who might enjoy it. Simply search Style Stories with Easy Living Interiors on Apple, Spotify or YouTube. This podcast is produced by justpod.io for Easy Living Interiors.
Welcome to the home you've always dreamed of, thanks to the Easy Living Interiors Home Event Sale. With flexible finance options, it's never been easier to afford the look you love in sofas, dining, beds and accessories. And we've discounts in every department, from best-selling favourites to new spring arrivals. Plus garden furniture with fast delivery. Shop in-store or online now. The home event at Easy Living Interiors. Cork, Dublin, Navan, Naas, Wexford, Waterford, Carlow and Drogheda. Sale now on.